So Jose is a dedicated Mr. Mass volunteer who's been greatly missed while he's been doing his research in South America, and he's going to present a little bit about that to you guys now. Thanks.
Cool. Great. Thanks, Astrid. That was an interesting exercise for sure. I will keep that in mind for next time. Yes, my name is Jose. I'm from Ecuador. I was born there, raised there, and now I currently work there as well. I'm going to just briefly talk to you and maybe present some of the work that I'm doing there. It's in the Amazon region, and it's something that I am truly passionate about. It's like environmental monitoring, and it's in a region that's been very much affected by oil industries and more a diversity of industrial activities. And so basically there's a connection between the work that we do and mapping, of course. And then I'm going to be talking to you about this and the way that we are maybe contributing to improve OSM data through this environmental monitoring and community activities. So first, let me just give you a little bit of context briefly. Ecuador is a small country in the western coast of South America. It's located between Colombia and Peru. It has three natural regions, four actually, one of which is the Amazon. It's located in the northeastern and actually southeastern part of the country. And this square in green is what we name the oil axis. This is basically because since the 1960s, there has been so many companies, foreign national of every nationality basically, coming into the country and trying to extract and trying to make profit out of the resources that are found there. Since the 1960s, as you may have thought, there were no environmental regulations put in place. These are actually, well, I don't know if you've heard, but Ecuador has a very avant-garde constitution because it gives the right to nature. It's actually one of the very few constitutions in the world to actually put that in paper. And, you know, for me, it doesn't really mean much because when I get there and I see the right of nature, it doesn't really translate into anything material. Unfortunately, we're still a country that's going through a very complicated development process somehow. And so while we have some very good institutions and maybe laws, there's still so much work to do in terms of environmental environmental controls to basically just respect the environment as it is. Yes, the oil axis. Nowadays is not the oil axis anymore. It's actually more of an industrial apparatus that is being deployed into this area. Agro-industry, forestry, mining, so much mining. But also, of course, oil, because there are still big reserves under the Amazonian soil. And the current government and all of the big businesses are willing to take it out. So it's a very conflicted area. There's so many conflicts in terms of at very different levels. There's basically people who want to defend the way they live and people who want to defend their territories and who are not willing to give that away easily. And I know this is a very simple thing for me to say, but this is a way for me also to convey a little bit of the purpose of the project. So it's basically gathering evidence in order to take part in this conflict. I mean, for me personally, as a citizen of Ecuador, I cannot be completely separate from this project. So I have been working with these local organizations, and we came up with this project in order to raise awareness first of the living conditions in the Amazon, and actually completely erase the myth of the jungle. The jungle is pretty far away. It's actually not in the region. the jungle starts somewhere around here. And there's oil extractive and extractive industries happening in the jungle as well. So the myth of Tarzan and so many other Hollywood picturesque movies is just like false. So basically, the first purpose of this project is to raise awareness at the biggest level. So we want to reach out to big crowds, big publics, and the mass media. The other main objective of this project is restoration. Yeah, because it's not fair that people live in such poverty and just like environmental destruction. I can tell you that it's really it's really heartbreaking to see that people are living in such just degraded environments. So what are we trying to do? What is this project that I'm talking to you about? It's basically, yes, we have been collaborating between a couple of universities and two big mid-level organizations. And basically these mid-level organizations have already been working with environmental community programs before. They have already set up an environmental monitoring scheme through which local residents are actually trained for the assessment of the quality of water in rivers, in ponds, and the water sources that they can find nearby, which is actually something really useful and something that has proved that it's working. And so the next step, and this is where I came into the picture, is basically a new training of drones this time and smartphones as well. So basically what we're trying to do is just gather more and more information and training these local monitors for the use of these technologies. We're in the very initial processes, so we just finished the planning and we are now actually gathering the data. The data right now, and you will see later on, is still very raw and needs to be worked and needs to be polished. And what we have been doing with this data is just basically diffusing it through channels of communication and writing reports and writing text and gathering testimonials as well. And so basically the next step is actually using the drone imagery for creating aerial imagery at the bigger level though, which has such level of detail and is actually very good for mapping. We want to identify the hotspots of contamination and potentially use OpenStreetMap as a tool for advocacy. So these are the pictures that I'm telling you about. This has been taken by many of the community monitors, and it basically tells you a story. Like if you accompany these images with a text that's been written by the local inhabitants of these areas, then you have a story and you have something that is going to change people's perceptions. And you can see here, the jungle is not an it's not a desert. The jungle is not a desert. It's really a place where people live and thrive, and they live off the natural resources there. And then you have something like this. This is basically an oil platform that has been abandoned, and it's been like this for years now. It's actually one of the more recent ones. You can see that, of course, there's no remediation. There's no efforts to even go back to the situation that was before. This is basically how it is. It's just how the companies do. They just leave things as they are. And yeah, there's very, very little enforcement to change that. So we want to expose that. We want to denounce. Let's talk about other industries as well, mining and agri-industry. So basically the oil axis is now an entire frontier of extractive industries, and this is something that we don't really agree at the personal level. Yes, I think I think this is what I wanted to share. I was only meant to talk for half the time, and I thank you, but I just want to leave you with this. This is basically the monitors and me training the monitors. But what I wanted to say is that they embrace these new technologies and they really like it, and they see so much potential to it, just because I am able to speak to you, and just because the stories that they have to tell will be public and they will reach to new ears and new audiences. And yeah, well, that's our hope, I think. Yes, and about the OpenStreetMap, that is going to be such an amazing tool for helping people out, because it's going to lead the way to identify the areas that need the most urgent action. If you're living next to a mining pit or an oil spill, then you need action there. You really need to either resettle or see how the damage, how to cope with the damage, or do something. And I think that's the hope of everything, really. Just like change, maybe do something potential that's going to be beneficial for them. Yes, these are the two organizations. Frente de Defensa de la Amazonía and Unión de Damnificados de Texaco. I know it doesn't tell you much, but these are two main organizations in the country because they have been behind the lawsuit that was filed against Chevron Texaco. And so, yes, this is basically the people who were victims of these environmental and human rights violations. And so I honestly feel very passionate about the project. I hope I got to convince you a little bit of my job. Thanks. Well, if anyone wants to just have a chat or maybe ask something.
How can we help?
Very good question.
Or how can we relay this message? Do you have
Yeah.
social media?
Yes, we are on social media. We have a website where these stories are going to be published. As I was saying, this is very like the very beginning of it all. So we're still getting there. We're still getting there. But yes, it's going to be diffused through websites. We will have a social media platform. I should share that with you now, actually.
But we can also share it through the London Facebook group to everybody that's there.
That would be
Or
great.
then if you want to write an essay.
So this is just to finish off. This is the website that still, it gathers many similar initiatives. That's a great thing too. What I'm telling you about Ecuador is already happening in Bolivia, Peru, several areas of Brazil, and so this is like a wider platform where people will get to know local stories, and we'll get to see the other side of the things that I'm telling you. So the website is basically Alcaxacha. It's right here. Okay, and I will share that on the Facebook group for sure. Yeah.
Thanks.
Are you going to the pub, Jose?
Sure.
So if anyone wants to talk to Jose later in the pub about this,
Cool.
you can buy him a drink.
Perfect.
Great. Thanks, Peter.